the way. I really do. It was a very selfish performance.
Caro. Thursday afternoons thanks to Solar Hearts on Adelaide's #1 sports show. 1395 Adelaide's 5AA.
Interactive radio.
Tweet at 1395 5AA.
Peter Godfrey.
17 minutes past 5 now. Quick text here. Could have mentioned great inventions earlier. Text came through saying the world's greatest invention has to be the abacus, the world's first computer. Could be a contender for the top of the tree for that one, I think. Thanks for that text. 1999 1395 if you'd like to send one through. In New Zealand, Selwyn Manning joins us now from livenews.co.nz. How are you, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter. How are things there?
Not too bad. What would you say would be the world's greatest invention? If I can just put you on the spot there quickly.
Gee. You know,
how do you... The chili bin?
Well, that's pretty much up there, you know, okay. Obviously for the lifestyle and enjoyment thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, it might be the rugby ball.
Oh, that's thinking outside the square a bit. Yes. I like that one. All right, that'll do. That'll do.
I'll leave people to wonder why, you know, a Kiwi would say that. So.
All right, let's get on to some news stories, I think. Murray McCully, now he's your Foreign Affairs Minister, not getting on too well with some of the officials in his ministry.
Not at all, no. He's very estranged from his ministry at the moment. Now, week after week, we have seen during question time in Parliament, former Labour leader and former Foreign Minister for New Zealand, Phil Goff, just applying the pressure to Murray McCully. Now, what it's all about, Peter, is you may remember some weeks ago I kind of spoke on your program here about Murray McCully, the Minister of Foreign Affairs under the National-led government, advancing basically a cuts plan, you know, a fiscal kind of tightening of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, our diplomatic wing. That's all around the world. Now, those cuts included 300 job cuts out of just short of 2,000 foreign affairs officials, and 600 foreign affairs officials having to reapply for their jobs. It was designed to save between $25 million and $40 million. Now, Murray McCully was front-footing that a few weeks ago. Since then, and since the pressure has come from both the politics side and also from the foreign affairs side, as we were predicting it would happen, he's tried to give some distance to where his decisions were on that, and really has been pointing the bone at the top boss at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Peter.
Oh, okay. I was reading too that there's concerns that cutting the jobs is actually going to end up costing more money with consultants and things like that.
Look, there's all of these things where, you know, the whole thing has been sold to the public as a cost-cutting measure right across the public service here in New Zealand to try and get New Zealand back on track to getting into fiscal surplus by the end of 2014, early 2015. Now, that has been, you know, and when you look at it, you can see that it's just not stacking up. These numbers are just not stacking up. Without going into the deep details of the numbers and drawing your listeners to kind of think, oh, it's a bit early in the morning for that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for that. You know, what is there is just, for example, Murray McCully admitted in the House last week, for example, that a whole posse of his diplomat heads from all the missions and posts around the world were flying back for a crisis meeting, basically, in Wellington. Now, that was going to cost $200,000. And, you know, the public are being expected to watch their expenditure, and they're kind of looking at this kind of thing, and you get a feeling they're thinking, well, this guy's just not on his game. There's another thing where McCully yesterday had to admit that, you know, the numbers were just not stacking up in another area. For example, $9.2 million was budgeted for the costs of the change that would only affect 30 people. So you can see, you know, from there, I mean, the cost of the change per person there, if someone's got a calculator, I mean, it's just not stacking up to meeting what was being sold here. Now, the big push that that has come this week is a leaked document where 49 out of 53 ambassadors and high commissioners, New Zealand ones from around the world, have signed a document that says they just do not believe that this plan can come to pass.
So
all
but four have signed it.
Four out of 53. So 49 have signed this, saying if these cuts in this plan, the strategic plan to in some ways commercialise the foreign affairs wing, if that comes to pass, it's going to undermine New Zealand's ability to actually maintain the effectiveness that it has in serving New Zealand's needs, both from a diplomatic side of things and a trade type of thing around the world. It comes down to that. Now, the only people that didn't sign it was ministerial appointees from the politics side, like Jim McCully. He's a former leader of the National Party. When the Nationals came in here, they appointed him to New Zealand's ambassador position at the United Nations. There's Mark Blumsky, who's a former National Party MP. He was appointed as the High Commissioner to Niue Island in the realm of New Zealand group of Pacific Islands, and a couple of others, one coming from the Army background. All the others have signed against what the Minister and the Foreign Affairs head's plan has been. So the whole thing is looking at me. So I've got to add that the most embarrassing thing for the Minister of Foreign Affairs is one of his political appointments to the High Commissioner position in the Cook Islands is a man called John Carter. Now, he is a former National MP, but also a former National Party Cabinet Minister, a colleague of Murray McCully's, and he signed the letter saying that this is folly.
With that kind of opposition to what he's doing, could he be for the chop, McCully?
Well, we've been predicting. We wrote a piece on a business that we've just launched this week called 36 Parallel Assessments, and that's 36parallel.com. And a colleague of mine, Dr. Paul Buchanan, and myself, we predicted 2 months ago that Murray McCully was heading toward a finite position, that he looked like he would not survive the spring. So all of these things seem to be compounding to the point where when a minister is estranged from his ministry officials, in particular in one that's so important as the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and that really being able to hold your ministerial portfolio beyond your use-by date when you've delivered those cuts seems to be an impossible task. And certainly in the House, Murray McCully, who has been a very powerful strategist within the National Party in past years, just looks to be isolated. If you look at his colleagues around him, for example, they do not come to his support when he's under pressure in the House. It's silence, Peter. It's just, you can almost hear the silence around him when he's speaking, and the quiver in his voice is, what politics is like, appearances and things like that are very, very important. But so that looks like he's not on his game. But also with the detail, when you look at the detail, it looks like he's just not delivering what one would expect, particularly in such an important ministry. All right.
Moving on to your ultra-fast broadband initiative, fears that... there could be a bit of espionage going on there, a bit of spying. It's a Chinese company involved in your rollout, a company that we've given the flick to.
Yes, that's right. Now, this Chinese ICT company, it manufactures hardware and sets up systems on a grand scale. It's Huawei, is the name of it, spelt Huawei, in case I pronounce it slightly different to others. Now, the New Zealand government has been giving it the backing here in New Zealand to roll out and to work within New Zealand's rollout of the ultra-fast broadband initiative. If you compare that to Australia and to the United States, that is just not happening. They've said, no, we do not want this company to be involved in a significant part of the rollout of the infrastructure, of those kind of things. And the concerns are that the company, for example, was led by a former China Government Liberation Army engineer since 2005. He's been in New Zealand during that time. That the Chinese government, it is suspected, according to the Americans and the Australian security agencies, they're suggesting, by the look of it, that the equipment has the potential to basically snoop, sniff, and to monitor what is going on a fairly grand scale within the internet kind of infrastructure in a particular country, I should say. So this is something that was raised yesterday on Radio New Zealand, that the New Zealand government's minister, Amy Adams, she came out and defended the New Zealand government's position, saying there isn't any major concerns relating to this company, and it's a good deal that New Zealand has. But then there has been widespread discussion over, really, is New Zealand setting itself up to be vulnerable to outside monitoring of significant aspects of New Zealand's communication technology networks, Peter.
So is this going to go ahead? This is pretty serious stuff, isn't it?
It's early days in the debate to answer that question, but certainly the government seems to, by way of its minister, it's a new minister in this portfolio, Amy Adams, and Communications and IT Minister. Now, it's early days for her, and whether or not they still are able, the government is able to back off this is a big question. What we do know is that the New Zealand government is very sensitive to upsetting the Chinese government. That the free trade agreement between China and New Zealand is one that the New Zealand government is very, very cautious to cause any concerns there. One, probably from the point of view of losing some sort of, significant two-way trade that is going on, but also it's a very, very tight legal document, and the New Zealand government, I think, is just very reticent to kind of bite off more than it can chew there.
We better be careful what we say over the phone then too, hadn't we, Selwyn?
Peter, yes. Echelon will be kicking in as we speak,
Exactly. Good on you, Selwyn. Thanks for all that. We'll catch you again next week, and plenty more on your website, livenews.co.nz. Thanks, Selwyn.
Okay, Peter, take care.
Talk to you then. 5:28, Anne Stone with News Sport and Weather next.
Welcome to the game that asks, are you gambling your life away? Today's lucky contestant is Steve. Let's see what's behind the curtain, shall we? It's Steve's car, Steve's job, and Steve's girlfriend. Steve, here's your chance to win back your life.
You could be gambling your life away without even realising it. Take the test today. Visit winbackyourlife.com.au. A message from the Government of South Australia.
Cooking in style at Harvey Norman. Steam ovens are the easiest and healthiest way to prepare your meals. Steam ovens lock in vitamins and minerals, making your meals nutritious and tasty. They cook food while retaining moisture and are perfect for meats and veg, as well as pasta and cakes. Harvey Norman have all the latest technology from the biggest brands in steam ovens. Miele, Blanco, AEG, Bosch, Smeg and many more in store. For more, come in and see the experts at Harvey Norman. Now, you're cooking in style.
It's more than the first game of the season for the Tigers this Saturday. It's actually the first time the boys will play at home under lights at Gliderol Stadium, Glenelg. Make sure you're a part of it. A great night for the whole family, with plenty of food and beverages, plus a jumping castle and face painting for the kids. The countdown is on. This Saturday, March 31, the Tigers under lights take on West Adelaide. Brought to you by Gliderol Garage Doors. First bounce at 6:30. Get there early to beat the crowd.
If your perfect holiday would be spent between iconic London and romantic Paris, 5AA is giving you the chance to get up and away. Go to 5AA.com.